Well, the war in Iran is certainly having an effect on markets around the world, and we're going to take a closer look at the situation now in Asia with Rochelle Ferguson Bouyahi, who joins me on the set. Rochelle, how has the war in the Middle East become an economic crisis for Asia?
Well, good question. I mean, some Asian countries over 7,000 kilometres away, but it's clear that the impact is being felt there a great deal. I'd like to kick off, if you will, Jean, with some figures that I find interesting. Let's think back to 2025. 20 million barrels per day of crude oil then and oil products, or that's roughly a quarter of the world's seaborne oil trade passing through the Strait. 80% of those shipments then were destined for Asia. That's according to the International Energy Agency. 90% then of liquefied natural gas, or LNG, exported through the Strait. So a huge dependency, if you will, from the Asian continent when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. Another interesting figure, 95% of Singapore's electricity is generated ultimately by natural gas that's imported from the Strait. So when we talk about Asian countries, we're not just talking about a few. It's almost all of Asian countries that are being impacted by this global crisis. So you have India, China less so because it's more energy efficient, but you have Japan, South Korea, a lot of these states, as we've been saying, heavily dependent on oil and gas imports from the Middle East. Again, Bangladesh and Pakistan, 50 and 25% respectively of their electricity supply mix then coming from natural gas. So you see that the dependency is huge. These are high consuming Asian nations. So whether you're looking at kind of heating, or if you're looking at air conditioning, or if you're looking at how electricity is used in homes, appliances, lights, these are generally, of course, electricity, but also fossil fuels, looking at oil, looking at your gas. This is one of the reasons, this clear dependency that this crisis has carved out, but has also shone the spotlight on when it comes to the link, if you will, between Asia and the Strait of Hormuz.
And what about businesses and ordinary consumers? What kind of effect is all of this having on them?
Well, again, a reminder for our viewers, the impact has been immediate in several nations. Think of Thailand and Vietnam, where they have ordered public sector workers essentially to stay home to prevent them using oil or fuel, I should say, to get to work. The Philippines are also taking note there, imposing a 4-day government work week. Again, they say that's aimed at cutting electricity consumption and saving kind of 20% at a time when they are particularly energy short. You'll see in other nations, universities have been closed. Students have been asked to study online, again, as a way to conserve those supplies. Fishermen and farmers are another group, if you will, the agricultural sector, that say that they are really struggling from high fuel costs. They can't import, they cannot, transport their products. So that is really hitting them hard. So you have food that's been impacted, our food sector, transportation, as we said. A number of countries, it has to be said, Jeannie, have put fuel subsidies into place. But given the length already of this conflict in the Middle East, fuel subsidies, a lot of consumers are saying, are simply not enough. 1 or 2 days of a fuel subsidy isn't going to remedy the situation. That, of course, gives rise to people using fuel on the black market again, which is also a concern for a number of governments. So this is really hitting Asia hard. I'll just wrap up by saying financial markets, stocks, bonds, investments, they are what will be hit next if, of course, this crisis persists.